Welcome back. And what we have for burning issues today, of course, we're still marking Akwa Ibom's 37th anniversary, but today we are zeroing in on the AI and ICT-related issues, asking the basic question, how ready is Akwa Ibom State for the future with the threats and opportunities offered by artificial intelligence? What do we have in place in Akwa Ibom State to say that in the next 3 years, or 10 years for that matter, when AI seeks to have taken over, as some would purport, Akwa Ibom will still have its art together as a state and fulfilling its potential and destiny as some of the greatest states in Nigeria. To join me in this conversation is technical growth specialist and co-founder of Dylan and Eureka Lab, founder of Future of Job of Africa and Remote Work Network, Akwa George. Welcome to Political Spectrum.
Thank you, Ifyo. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear. We've been generally, everybody here in Akwa Ibom have been complaining about fuel. How much did you get fuel for the last time you got?
Well, sincerely speaking, I've not gotten fuel today. Yesterday, I was fortunate to get a filling station at 1,500, and that was the last time I got. I think one of the business just opened briefly, and I was opportune to just quickly get a little bit for my tank. So this morning, I hear it's about 2,000 and thereabouts.
Whoops.
That's the situation we find ourselves.
Whoops. Earlier in the day, the program, our flagship breakfast program, we had a guest. We talked about some of the reasoning behind what's playing out and notified us that perhaps this is not just, it's not a national thing per se. It has some peculiarity with the Akwa Ibom. I just hope that those in authorities will put their act together and give us some respite because, things are very difficult as it is. Adding this extra burden is not what we want to play with.
Yeah, it is.
So let's dive right into it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yesterday, Vice President Kashim Shettima, representing the President Bola Tinubu at the United Nations General Assembly, had his time and addressed the world. One of the things he talked about was AI, and what he said was the unevenness of the digital space with regards to nation state. Let's just take a listen to what he said, and then we'll roll the conversation from there.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. While the world is transitioning into the fourth industrial revolution, Africa remains energy deficient. The push for the accelerated implementation of SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, therefore, must take into account Africa's precarious situation. Nigeria believes that natural gas remains central to the search for solutions to the energy challenges that Africa and the international community face. Access to affordable, reliable, cleaner sources of energy is more than an environmental or developmental issue. It is a key factor in social peace and international security. Mr. President, Nigeria remains unwavering in its commitment to SDG 13, climate action, including the net zero ambition and transition from fossil fuel energy to clean energy. As a demonstration of this commitment, the government established the Presidential Committee on Climate Action and Green Economy Solutions and appointed a special presidential envoy on climate action. We will redouble our efforts to address the challenges posed by climate change, including the
Mr. Akwa George, you heard the Vice President there. When he's talking about those initiatives that he's put in place or the state has put in place, how confident are you that that is addressing the ever-present challenge and opportunity that artificial intelligence has in place?
Well, from the clip we just watched, the Vice President was more focused on climate change and energy. I know he touched on artificial intelligence further on in the station. I would say that striking a balance between the Vice President's speech at the United Nations Assembly and what is actually obtainable on ground, it's a far cry. A far cry in the sense that, yes, that we need to find a way, or the international community needs to find a way to make sure that Africa belongs in the digital revolution, where AI and digital technology is taking over. But at the same time, I think Africa on its own needs to they need to begin to look inward, because it's one thing for you to cry out or call out for assistance from international organizations, but it's another thing for you yourself to be prepared to take the bull by the horn and do what is necessary. If you ask me, I would say that at the federal level, to some extent, we're beginning to get it right at the federal level, whereby we see initiatives by the federal government driving towards digital inclusion, ICT innovations, but at the state, sub-state, at the sub level, now this is not particular to Akwa Ibom State, but across the states in the country, we're not seeing a lot of activities as far as digital innovation and renewable energy is concerned. And I think Nigeria is approaching it from a top to bottom approach, but the actual approach should be a bottom to top approach. If things are happening at the national level and it doesn't trickle down to the local level, we're not going to get the kind of impact we emphasize. I don't know if you're hearing me, if I'm audible enough.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so loud and clear. Okay, so I think Nigeria, we should try the bottom to top approach, whereby we domesticate the innovation, we domesticate the drives, we domesticate whatever initiative that the federal government is trying to push out there. Because if the federal government continues to turn out initiatives and push initiatives, and it doesn't trickle down to the local economy or to local persons, then I don't think all those initiatives and all the requests from the foreign organization or foreign aids will make any impact in the country.
One very important thing you talked about is how the states are not seem to be disconnected from what the federal government is doing. By your estimation, and not just your estimation, quite a number of other people are giving kudos to the Minister of Digital Technology. He's been doing quite a number of things in that regard. But this entire conversation cannot start without paying due notice to the fact that the Akwa Ibom State was the first state to even envisage something like a science park or an ICT park. Not too far from here, we have an uncompleted carcass of a structure that was supposed to represent the future of tech in Akwa Ibom State, and by extension, even the nation. And we've seen governors all the way from when architect Abong Victor laid the foundation and raised that structure up into the air, through Akpabio, Udom, and even this administration seem not to have an idea what to do with it. Talking about, you've been working with Google, you've worked with Microsoft, and quite a number of multinational ICT organizations. What really do you think the government didn't do with regards to the ICT park, just not far away from our studio here?
Well, thank you for that. That's a very important question. Now, what we didn't do right and what we still haven't done right is that the government has not intentionally, intentionally worked with an ICT blueprint for the state. That is the starting point. What is happening at the national level, we all give kudos to, is because when the minister came on board, the minister is part of the tech ecosystem. He's the founder of the CC Hub. So because when he came on board as the minister, he came with a blueprint, a national ICT blueprint. And what is being implemented is coming from the blueprint, meaning that if the minister day leaves, another minister comes on board, the next minister will also follow that blueprint, follow the blueprint. And that means there is a systemic development as far as the ICT industry or sector is concerned. But in Akwa Ibom, what happened was more like somebody comes up with an initiative and tries to bring it upstream, and then maybe challenges came out as a result, sometimes maybe economic challenge or whatever, and then the project did not see the light of the day. Tomorrow another government comes, they try their own initiative, it doesn't work out. What we need, first of all, is to have an ICT blueprint for Akwa Ibom State that is accepted by the Akwa Ibom people, and that subsequent governments, when they come upstream, will follow the blueprint. For instance, if you see why we're making some progress when it comes to infrastructure, it is because when you look at infrastructure, like the roads, network, and thereabout, it's because there was a master plan from the onset. Kudos to our former governor, Atta. Because of the master plan, every successive government builds on the master plan. Whether they distorted the plan here and there, no problem, but at least there is a plan that we are working on. And because we worked with this plan since democracy, we are seeing the result today, and that's why Akwa Ibom is being celebrated when it comes to infrastructures, like road infrastructures and stuff like that. But if we want to make inroad in the ICT sector, then Akwa Ibom State must do something similar to what we did with road infrastructure. Have a master plan for the state as far as ICT is concerned, that subsequent government, when they come on board, they'll pick a component of that master plan and implement. And then in 5 to 10 years' time, we will see the kind of progress that you and I emphasize. Without that, without having a master plan, without having a roadmap for ICT, we're only going to be touching a little bit here and there, here and there, and here and there.
Talking about a little bit here and there, we are hearing this thing about Ibom fiber optic. Do you have an idea of what this is? I've seen billboards around the city. Uyo, Ibiniodo is the face of that initiative. Does this in any way have anything to do with the governor's? He's trying to. One of the things you mentioned the master plan. One of the things that successive governments have tried to do has been to position Akwa Ibom as an investor haven, right? Where people can come in, drop at the international airport, have the residence at the 5-star hotel, and then they can go anywhere in the state, looking at very vast and well put together, in some regards, road network that we have. And another component of that has been, of course, the digital network. And we are hearing this Ibom fiber. Does this have anything to do with what we're talking about?
Well, no, Ibom Fiber, it's a private company initiative. I don't think there's anything, I don't think government is involved. To my knowledge, I don't think. I think it's a private initiative, a private investor trying to build a broadband network, which is what we need in Akwa Ibom. We need broadband services in Akwa Ibom State. And I think it's a private initiative. And that's one infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, that is necessary. But however, this infrastructure is going to be limited to only the eyebrow areas. Only the eyebrow areas, because it is a private initiative. What we need is more of a government initiative that can take broadband to the interlands, because as far as the interlands are not connected to the national broadband, then we won't be able to have impact as far as ICT is concerned where it is actually needed. Now, when we talk about ICT, most times we look at it as something that is far-fetched. The truth of the matter is that ICT that is not applicable to your economy, to your society, is irrelevant. Now, because we are a third world country, where ICT will be applicable to us is when ICT begin to solve our own needs, our own problem. Now, what is our problem? The problem for us as a third world economy is that we need to feed our people to start with. We need to fight hunger. We need proper health care. We need jobs. So how do we deploy ICT to solve this problem? That is the crux of the matter. Not just importing what is being done abroad, like facial recognition. Yes, the advanced nation might be going as far as weaponizing AI for warfare and stuff like that. But for us, where it is relevant is how do we deploy AI or artificial intelligence or ICT to solve the immediate challenges. For instance, we have shortage of doctors in the rural communities. Can we develop an application that is accessible to nurses in the primary health centers, that they can have access to information, for instance, like a telemedicine application where the nurse can actually have access to certain information, diagnosis, that they can attend to the rural people in the rural community and be able to attend to them where we have shortage of doctors, and where they could also be able to connect to doctors who are in the mainland like we are in Uyo, who they could give them guidance on how to go about to ensure that there is proper healthcare at the rural community. So those are the kind of things we're looking at. But things like that will be very, very difficult to get to the hinterlands of Akwa State because we don't have the infrastructure. The broadband network is not there. Now the GSM, there are still certain places in Akwa State where GSM technology has not gotten to. And some places where GSM has gotten to, but they don't have 3G, not to talk of 4G network, not to even talk of 5G. And this is a failure on the part of the government, I must say. Now, why do I say this? Because when the GSM licenses were issued in the country, I pride myself as an Akwa Ibom State. Then I was in Lagos as a student. I pride myself as an Akwa Ibom State that Akwa Ibom State government invested in Econet. The Attack government invested in Econet. And because of that, I think Akwa Ibom State was the third or the fourth state to have a GSM network. And because we had that first mover advantage, if we had continued on that trajectory, making sure that we have a plan and follow through the plan as one of the first states to have a GSM network communication, and we continue to build on that with subsequent government, I am sure would have made inroad to the hinterlands of Akwa Ibom by now. Would have had internet connections in rural communities, would have had ICT hubs in rural communities, would have had ICT services to handle things like agri-tech, agriculture. For instance, there are applications today that can help local farmers, where they can engage AI application on their smartphones and that can predict their farming input. The farm input, the farm output in a couple of times. These applications are available, and these applications can even be developed locally. But the challenge would be we don't have the infrastructure to ensure that such technology gets to the people who really need them. Because if they have access, for instance, in agri-tech, that is agricultural technology, where farmers can have access, or maybe extension workers, maybe not farmers per se, maybe the farmers might not be literate enough, but extension workers have access to AI applications that can predict the weather, that can predict the outcome of farm produce in a couple of months, so that you'll be able to guide the farmers on the right seedling, the right time to plant, the right pesticide to use and stuff like that with the AI assisted farmer. Then it will now be impactful to the local people, and then production of food will increase, and then maybe by God's grace we would have solved that issue of hunger and food scarcity in Akwa Ibom State. So we must be able to find ways to get technology to the grassroots. As long as technology still remains in Uyo, an elitist thing, then it's still a challenge.
Now, you've laid quite a number of things to talk about. I'm going to hold brief. There are some other things that we'll talk about now, and then we'll come back to these things that you've raised, particularly with regards to employment. But looking at the leaders themselves, is there a correlation between what's the word I should use now? The digital acquaintance of the leaders, or the digital competence of the leaders, and on one hand, and the ability to envisage some of the things that we are talking about today, for instance, putting together a digital infrastructure that will go beyond the urban centers to the hinterland?
Well, with all honesty, I would say that a leader must not know it all. So even if the leader per se might not be vast in this area, I'm sure the leader has foot soldiers, lieutenants around.
You know why I'm saying this?
If the leaders are able
hold on. I'm saying this because now we've been talking about the fourth industrial revolution since probably as far back as I can remember, probably 6-7 years now, right? And we've been talking about the impact it would have on society. We've been talking about all kinds of things, and up till now, we seem not to have people who talk about Trump all you want. One of the things about him is that he does his Xing. Now that's what Twitter is called. Twitter is called now, right? He does his own communication on his mobile. Yeah. Right? How many of our leaders can put together, articulate their thoughts, and use social media on their own without having to pass through some other person who is a personal assistant, who is a special assistant, blah 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 blah? So the ability to navigate these things, how does it now impact the ability to envisage the opportunities on one side and the threats that these technologies have on the horizon?
My response to that would be simply putting square pegs in square holes or round pegs in round holes. Now, the leaders themselves might not be tech savvy, but if the leaders are able to ensure that the people in charge of ICT and tech within their administration are people from the tech industry, not politicians, then they could make headway. As long as I decide to politicize everything, for instance, I want to appoint someone to be a commissioner or an SSA as far as ICT is concerned, and then I'm looking for somebody who is a politician. Definitely, a politician has his own interest, and his interest might conflict with the interest of the ICT industry. So as a politician, the advice I might give the governor might not be in tune with the reality on ground because I am not an insider in the industry. So I agree with you, the leaders themselves might not be tech savvy, might not be able to be competent in terms of the use, might not be savvy as far as tech is concerned. But if you understand that you need technocrats in areas where technocrats are required, and you need politicians in areas where politicians are required, then you would have an opportunity to grow and to make impact. I believe the tech politicians are very useful. They have their area of expertise, and there are ways you could place politicians, there are roles you could place politicians, and you get results. But when you place political allies in a technocrat role position, then you will have issues. Because, why do I say this? Now, you mentioned in the course of your interaction. Now, this is not my own horn. Now, there are several initiatives that are happening out there today by Facebook, by Google, by IBM, by Microsoft. Now, even if the governor is not aware that I can partner with Google to ensure that they bring this initiative to Akwa Ibom State so that Akwa Ibom State indigenes will benefit, because some of these projects are counter-funded, some of these projects are even free. But if the governor is not aware, the people running ICT within the state should be able to be aware of such programs and see how they can connect the state to these programs. But these guys are not doing it probably because they were not originally part of the ecosystem. Now, why the minister is making inroad? Like I said, the minister was part of the ecosystem. He is the founder of CC Hub in Lagos. So he has been able to be in the system, understand the system. So becoming a minister, he knows, he has the connection, he has the network, he has the intelligence, he understands the industry. So he's trying to do things, and we are beginning to celebrate the things that the federal government is doing because of the minister, of who he is. So, but in the state, I don't think I don't think it's the same. Because if it is the same, I would have been seeing, for instance, like we speak today, NCAIR has a 1 million naira funding for AI startups in Nigeria.
Hold on. You said NCI. What does that stand for, please?
It's an agency of the federal government that has to do with regulating and promotion of AI.
Okay.
It's under the Ministry of Digital Economy. Now they have, in collaboration with Google, an AI fund for startups, grants for startups in the AI field. Now, what I expect that the people running the affairs in Akwa Ibom State would have been, do we have startups in Akwa Ibom State that are building things in relation to AI? How do we position them to ensure they take part and they become beneficiaries of this 100 million naira grant to startups that is being doled out by Google in partnership with NCAIR for the AI funding? But nothing of such is happening. In fact, it's as if they don't even know such things are happening. There are things that IBM is currently running right now that government, state government, local governments, countries are trying to connect with to see how they can connect their citizens to take advantage of the free trainings. What are the ICT gurus, or let me say, what are the handlers of the ICT industry sector in the government doing? They seem to be oblivion about it. So what I'm saying is that there is a disconnect between the reality and what is happening at the state level. And that's because I don't think that the current administration, just like the previous administration, are actually putting the right persons in the right positions.
Wow, powerful things you're saying, and really rocking and rolling me, because I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking about, for instance, a few weeks ago we saw the governor come to gather some youth together and thank them for not being involved in the End Bad Governance protest, and doled out, I think, in total about 300 or something million naira to them. Some said they just shared the money and then it was over. And I was wondering, concurrently, the federal government, with the Minister of Digital Economy, was partnering with, I think, Google, and on a conference that had to do with AI, and it was running. I just looked at it. It was running side by side, and I'm looking at this is what we are dealing with here, and look at what other people are doing over there. And this is not just an Akwa Ibom thing, like you said at the beginning. We have other states doing things like this, and seemingly oblivious of the opportunity, the vast opportunities that lay in this domain, as well as the threats. Now, talking about the threats that are laid in this domain, we just had a video not so long ago where Yuval Noah is one of the, would I say, successors of the World Economic Forum, Carl Schwab, one of those prodigies of designing and putting him together to take over the World Economic Forum. And he said something about AI and the threats that AI that accompanies AI. Let's take a view at that, and then we'll have a conversation around it.
A human being. You need two things, just two things. You need a good understanding. So even if the secret police followed you around 24 hours a day, watching everything you do, they still couldn't know what was really happening inside your brain. They still couldn't really understand your feelings, or predict your choices, or manipulate your desires. But soon, corporations and governments will have enough understanding of biology and enough computing power to hack humans. And when this happens, and it is already beginning to happen, then authority will gradually shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already beginning to happen in more and more fields, even in democratic societies. Even without any government coercion, people are willingly entrusting more and more authority to the algorithms. We trust Facebook to tell us what is new. We trust Google Search to tell us what is true. We trust Google Maps to tell us where to go. Netflix tells us what to watch, and Amazon tells us what to buy. Eventually, within 10 or 20 or 30 years, such algorithms could also tell you what to study at college, and where to work, and whom to marry, and even whom to vote for. And as algorithms become better, they can not only guide and control humans, they might also replace humans in more and more jobs. And this is even true, or especially true, of jobs that demand a good understanding of human feelings. For example, there is a lot of talk these days about self-driving cars. But even in order to replace human drivers, self-driving vehicles, or the computers that drive these vehicles, they need not just to know how to navigate the road, they need to understand humans. They need to understand and anticipate the behavior both of human customers and also of human pedestrians. They need, for example, to recognize the difference between an 80-year-old and an 18-year-old and a 40-year-old that are approaching the road. And they need to understand something about the difference in behavior between small children and teenagers and adults. Similarly, in order to replace human doctors, computer will need to understand not just our diseases, but also our emotional moods. The computer will have to know whether a patient is angry or fearful or depressed. But it's very likely that computers will be able to do that better than most human doctors, because after all, anger and fear and depression are biochemical phenomena just like flu and cancer and diabetes. If computers can diagnose flu, computers can also diagnose fear. Now, of course, as all jobs in driving vehicles and in diagnosing diseases will gradually disappear, all kinds of new jobs, which we cannot even imagine at present, will emerge. But the new jobs, too, will continue to change and to disappear. Few jobs will remain the same for decades, for a long time. Some people imagine that the coming automation revolution will be a one-time event. Let's say in 2025, you have the big automation revolution, lots of jobs disappear, lots of new jobs appear, we have a couple of rough years, and then everything settles down to a new equilibrium in the job market and in the economy. But it will not be like that. It will be a cascade of ever bigger disruptions. You have a big revolution in 2025. You have an even bigger revolution in 2035, because by then AI is so much better. And an even bigger revolution in 2045, which means that to stay relevant, you will have to reinvent yourself, not just once, but repeatedly. Like every 10 years, 15 years, to reinvent yourself. And the main obstacle for doing that might well be psychological, more than economical.
Was Yuval Noah Harari, and he was talking with Russell Brand and talking about the future. Uko, quite a number of things he said.
Yeah.
Start with anyone and let's have a conversation from there.
Okay. One of the things that he said that struck me has to do with the future of jobs. That area, and why? Because during COVID, in the heat of COVID, I did a program that was tagged Future of Job. It was strictly online, and it was more like to create awareness around the future and how remote is turning to be the in thing, remote work, and that there is a tons of opportunity in the remote work space. And that in order for you to position yourself to be relevant in the future of work, that it will require you to reskill yourself. You need to reskill yourself. And now, this is important because the future of jobs, the AI era, there will be a lot of job displacement. A lot of job displacement. For instance, AI is beginning to do things that we never ever imagined AI should be able to do. AI in medicine, AI in agri, AI in e-commerce, AI in different spheres. So what this means is that a lot of traditional roles in this sector are going to be displaced by technology, by AI. But the good thing is that even though this technology will be displacing some certain job roles, the same technology will be creating new job roles. So what it means is that for you to be relevant in the future, or for you to be relevant in the AI economy, simply means that you also need to be sensitive around your profession, see how you can reskill yourself, to reposition yourself to remain relevant, because some jobs will be displaced and new jobs will be created.
Now let me hold you up there, because towards the end, later on in that video, he goes on to say that the disruption that will be caused by AI will be so enormous that it will create a society where you have a few people who are able to, who are relevant, in his words. He said those who are relevant and those who are useless. In other words, those people who are relevant are people who have been able to harness AI and they are in production. They are the people who are creating value and creating wealth. And you have a majority of the population who are, in his words, not bringing value to the people or to the state, and he calls them useless, or the useless class, so to speak. Very controversial choice of words. But he raises an issue which has to do with the social cohesion in a situation where, say, 50 years, he mentioned that AI would not just be, the disruption will be cascaded, in his words. So probably every 5 years or 10 years or whatever, you have hike or spikes in the revolution that, you know, heightens where AI is taking everyone to. But he says that the implication of it will of course be that there is the need for government to be able to prepare for a situation like that. And here I'm asking the question, that question I asked earlier, are we even seeing this happen? Do we have the mental acumen to even put together a legal framework to be able to deal with the things that will, you know, happen from there? Already we are having issues with AI and copyright materials and things like that. Do we even have the legal framework to deal with things like this? Does the government itself think about managing the social space where you have millions of people in a society who are not creating value, but they will still be alive, and the state needs to depend, or rather put things that will help them survive? Something like a social scheme, for instance, to manage these people who are not doing so much in an economy that just a few people are benefiting from.
A tough one. But I agree with you, and I agree with him to an extent. I mean, to a whole lot of extent. I think probably maybe some persons might quote him out of context. Yes, we don't have any legal framework on ground at the government level. What we have is private initiative trying to see what they could do within the space to mitigate the disruption. Like I said, in 2021, in the heart of the COVID, in 2020, I had something similar that I was running. But like you would say, I had no, I didn't get interest from the government. There was no one from the government sector who was interested, because literally what I was doing was bringing people who are already working in the remote space to come educate young persons on how to leverage opportunities in the remote workspace and how to reskill yourself and be relevant in the future of work. But sad as it may be, I had people from outside the countries that were more interested than even people within the country. I had people from South Africa connect. I had people from Ghana and Kenya. I had a couple of Nigerians, but very few Akwa Ibomites. Now, what am I saying? I think that one, we don't have any legal framework. There is no plan, like I said earlier, no master plan to mitigate the disruption, and that's because our government don't seem to see the importance, or see, I don't think they really see the impact. We're so carried away by the current challenge we have now. It's just unfortunate that we are a third world country, or a third world economy. And as a third world economy, like I did mention, our focus is on how to make food available, how to fight hunger, how to make power available. And because we're so much focused on the basics, it makes us short-sighted as far as projecting into the future, because this future is imminent, is definitely going to come. What we should be doing is, just like what you're doing right now, trying to build the conversation, create awareness about the disruption of jobs the displacements of jobs, and how certain persons will become irrelevant if they don't begin to take initiative to reposition themselves. And having said, now what we talk about, it does not mean that you need to be an AI expert or an AI guru. All it simply means is that be sensitive around whatever you're doing. There is an AI innovation or disruption in that industry you find yourself. So why not see how you can align, learn, reskill yourself, and make sure that you are still relevant in that profession, applying AI in whatever context. So this doesn't mean that you need to change your career. It doesn't mean that you need to change whatever profession you are. It simply means that you need to be sensitive to the time and be sensitive to the disruption that is happening in your sector and ensure that you align and reskill yourself to stay relevant. And then that's for individual. And then for the government, I think they need, because the government, they are the policy drivers, and the people who always tilt towards the government policy is driven. If government decides now to be intentional about creating awareness and preparing the people for the future disruption, I think the people themselves will start aligning themselves. But once the government seems not to be even playing in that space, the majority of the persons will not even be conscious or aware that there is an imminent disruption coming in future. Some of you, for someone like you, myself, and maybe a pocket of persons around who are fortunate, let me put it that way, to be exposed to these innovations, we know this is coming and we're preparing ourselves to ensure we stay relevant. But the larger majority are not aware. What it requires is the government to give the policy direction in terms of beginning to see how you can prepare the people for the future. Now, this future we're talking about is not 10, 20 years to come. The future is already here. AI is displacing a whole lot. Like I said, there are applications in medicine, there are applications in agri, there are applications in commerce, there are applications in different industry that we as a people need to start looking at that industry and seeing how we can align ourselves so that we remain relevant as individuals, and so that Akwa Ibom State still remains relevant in the community of nations or the community of states as far as innovative technology is concerned.
Okay, let me, in 2017, talking about the current Minister of Digital Economy, you know, 2017, that's when you had Mark Zuckerberg visit Nigeria and visited then President Buhari. But what actually brought him to Nigeria was the hub at Lagos.
The hub.
Yeah, and he signed quite a number of agreements with that gentleman. A year after, I was watching on TV robots replacing newscasters in China. So this technology in 2018, that's about 6 years ago, they were proving and testing that technology. That was even before AI had grown to what AI is. You know about Sophia and what Sophia has been doing, you know, in that space, right? But I want to challenge you, and not just you, but everyone in that space, in your industry. We've had situations where individuals or experts in a particular field come together and put together some policy direction and hand it over to the government, or even sponsor a bill. Is this something that you can do for our state? And not just you, but say gather people who are from Akwa Ibom, who are relevant in this space, and put together some kind of document that will guide Akwa Ibom in the direction of an AI-dominated world, say a few years from now.
If you didn't tell me you're going to put me on the spot when you invited me on the show. Now, okay, let me just say this. What you just suggested had already been done. Like I said, having round pegs in round holes, or square pegs in square holes. When this president, we've done things like this in the past with previous administration, but nobody gave us the listening ears. And when this current administration, now talking about Akwa Ibom, came upstream, I don't know, you recollect when the Arise agenda, and there was a conference for their RISE agenda, where the governor wanted to introduce their RISE agenda, and there was this conference where they were broken into different sector groups, where we had group discussions about different industry. We also had the tech industry too come together to discuss. And though I was not in Akwa Ibom then, I was out of town, so I did not attend. But I have my colleagues, people in the same space, like myself, like Hanson Johnson of Start Innovation Hubs, like Tony and Onuk and Francis Onuk. They were all there. We had a master plan, a digital ICT roadmap blueprint that was handed to the government at that forum. That this is our solution. This is coming from members of the tech ecosystem in Akwa Ibom State. This is a blueprint where we think the government should look into and begin to do stuff in order to mitigate, in order to ensure that Akwa Ibom is not left behind. But however, I don't know where the document is today. I don't know those in charge, how far they pushed it. But like I said, if you have somebody who is part of the community, who is also pained about what is happening, like the commission, like the minister of digital economy is doing in Abuja, who is part of the community, who understands the pain of the community, and who sees where the world is going, and decides to see how he could, within his own little space, bring it into government, into governance. If we have persons like that in Akwa Ibom State, I am sure we would have been making some sort of results. Like I said, there are lots of opportunities to partner with out there. These are the kind of things that would have helped Akwa Ibomites in terms of getting the digital technology to the grassroots, but nobody is looking that way.
Well, very, very interesting conversation I'm having with Co-Judge. He's a technical growth specialist and co-founder of Dillion and Eureka Labs, as well as the founder of Future of Jobs Africa, a remote work network. I'm sure I'm going to have to bring you again. So much we have left to cover. And I hope that perhaps in the next few years, you'll see that these rights have been wrong, because like we rightly put together, we started this revolution way back in 1999, 2000, with the proposal of the Science Park, and then upgraded to the ICT Park because we had people who could see. But then now we are where we are. But wonderful conversation, but we have to leave it here. Thank you so much, Co-Judge, for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Well, that's how far we can go today. Of course, we'll bring you another on our series on Akwa Ibom 37 tomorrow. Be sure to join us then. But for me, do enjoy the rest of your day.